The house was quieter than a grave, but the scream was waiting in the kitchen. Ethan Caldwell stood frozen, the cold marble of the island countertop seeping through his expensive suit jacket. He had spent the last 6 months living a double life, convinced he was the smartest man in the room, playing a dangerous game between a loyal wife and a fiery mistress. He thought he held all the cards. He was wrong. Lying there, next to his wife's wedding ring, was a piece of construction paper with a message scrawled in jagged red crayon. "Mommy has a new hero." Ethan didn't know it yet, but his life was already over. The demolition had just begun. The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Ethan Caldwell watched the droplets race down the window of the luxury apartment on the 24th floor, buttoning a shirt that smelled faintly of lavender detergent, a scent that belonged to his home. Not here. Behind him, in the tangled sheets of a bed that wasn't his, Jessica stirred. She was everything his life back in the suburbs wasn't: chaotic, demanding, and thrillingly dangerous. "You're leaving early," Jessica murmured, her voice thick with sleep. She sat up, pulling the duvet to her chest. "The wife have a curfew?" Ethan flinched at the word. He hated the way she said wife, like it was a dirty word, despite the fact that Jessica was the one knowingly sleeping with a married man. He turned, flashing the charming, practiced smile that had closed million-dollar deals for his architecture firm. "It's not a curfew, Jess. It's appearances. Big meeting tomorrow. I need to be fresh." It was a lie. There was no meeting. There was just the gnawing, low-level guilt that had started to morph into irritation. He checked his Rolex, a gift from Leora for his 40th birthday last month. 10:15 p.m. If he drove fast, he could be home by 11. He'd tell Leora he was stuck reviewing the blueprints for the erratic tech billionaire's new compound. Leora never asked questions. That was the beauty of Leora. She was the foundation, solid, unmoving, and frankly a little boring. Jessica was the spire, flashy and precarious. "You promised we'd talk about the weekend," Jessica said, her tone sharpening. "Aspen, you said you'd figure it out." "I'm working on it," Ethan snapped, grabbing his keys. He softened his tone immediately, a reflex. "I just need to find the right time to tell her I have a conference." He kissed Jessica on the forehead, a gesture that felt more like a transaction than affection, and walked out. The elevator ride down was a decompression chamber. He watched the numbers descend, mentally shedding the skin of the lover and pulling on the skin of the husband. He took out his phone, scrolling through his messages. 3 missed calls from Leora. 1 text: "Dinner is in the fridge. Love you." He rolled his eyes. Predictable. Safe. He got into his Audi Q7, the leather cold against his back. As he navigated the wet streets onto I-5, he rehearsed his lines. The traffic was a nightmare. The client wanted changes to the atrium. My phone died. Ethan felt a surge of arrogance. He had been doing this for nearly a year, and he hadn't slipped up once. He was careful. He paid for dinners with cash. He had a second phone locked in the glove box of his car. He convinced himself that he deserved this. He provided the lifestyle, the house in Bellevue, the private school for their 6-year-old son, Leo. Didn't he deserve a release? Leora was consumed by motherhood and domestic management. She had stopped seeing him as a man and started seeing him as a utility provider. Jessica saw the man. He pulled into the driveway of his pristine, 2-story colonial at 10:55 p.m. Exactly. The house was dark, save for the porch light that cast long, skeletal shadows across the manicured lawn. The silence of the suburbs usually comforted him, but tonight the air felt heavy, oppressive. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, waiting for the familiar settling of the house. Usually, The neighbor's dog would bark, or the sprinkler system would hiss to life. Tonight? Nothing. Just the ticking of the cooling engine. He grabbed his briefcase, locking the Jessica phone in the hidden compartment under the passenger seat, and stepped out into the drizzle. He unlocked the front door, expecting the warmth of the central heating to hit him, carrying the scent of whatever roast Leora had made. Instead, the air inside was cool. Stale. "Leora," he called out, dropping his keys in the ceramic bowl by the door. The clatter seemed deafeningly loud. No answer. He frowned. Usually, she left the hallway lamp on. He flipped the switch. The light flooded the foyer, revealing the gleaming hardwood floors he had installed 2 years ago. Everything looked perfect. The framed photos on the wall, Leo at soccer, their wedding photo on the beach in Maui, stared back at him. But the house had a frequency, a hum of life, and that hum was dead. "Leora? Leo!" He walked into the living room. The throw pillows were chopped and fluffed, sitting at perfect angles. The remote control was aligned parallel to the edge of the coffee table. It was too clean. It looked like a showroom, not a home where a 6-year-old lived. A knot of unease tightened in his stomach. He told himself he was being paranoid. She was probably asleep. Leo was asleep. He was just wired from the adrenaline of the affair. He loosened his tie and headed for the kitchen. He'd grab a glass of water, maybe heat up the dinner she mentioned, and then slip into bed. He'd apologize for working late, kiss her shoulder, and everything would reset. He pushed open the swinging door to the kitchen. The under-cabinet lights were on, casting a soft glow over the white quartz island. That's when he saw it. It wasn't a dinner plate. It wasn't a glass of wine. Sitting in the absolute center of the massive island was a single sheet of yellow construction paper. And resting on top of it was Leora's diamond wedding ring. Ethan stared at the ring. It was a 3-carat oval-cut, platinum band. He remembered the day he bought it, the pride he felt not at the love it represented, but at the price tag. It was a status symbol. Seeing it sitting there, cold and detached from Leora's finger, felt like a physical blow. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and picked up the ring. It felt heavy. He dropped it into his pocket, the metal clinking against his loose change. Then he looked at the paper. It was a drawing, clearly done by Leo. To the left, a stick figure with wild brown hair and a frown. Mommy. To the right, a tall, jagged figure in blue and red. And between them, in thick, waxy red crayon, were the words, "Mommy has a new hero." Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. A laugh bubbled up in his throat, a nervous, jagged sound. A hero? Was this a game? Had they gone to see a Marvel movie? Was this some sort of cryptic joke? "Leora, come on," he said aloud, his voice cracking. "I'm tired. This isn't funny." He pushed past the island and headed for the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. The unease was rapidly evolving into panic. "Leora!" He threw open the door to the master bedroom. The bed was made. Not just made. It was stripped of the duvet, the sheets pulled tight as a drum. The pillows were missing. He spun around and ripped open the walk-in closet. His side was full. His suits, his shirts, his shoes, all untouched. Leora's side was decimated. The hangers were there, clattering together emptily as the draft from the door hit them. Her dresses, her coats, her shoe rack, gone. He dropped to his knees, pulling open the drawers. Empty. No jewelry, no passports, no birth certificates. No. Ethan scrambled backward, scrambling to his feet. He ran down the hall to Leo's room. The door was ajar. He pushed it open. Leo's room was usually a disaster zone of Legos and Hot Wheels. Now it was barren, The bed was stripped. The toy chest was open and empty. The poster of the solar system was gone, leaving 4 sticky tack marks on the blue paint. Ethan stood in the center of the child's room, spinning in a slow circle. They were gone, not just out for the night. Gone. He pulled his phone out, his fingers fumbling over the screen. He dialed Leora. "The number you have reached has been disconnected or is no longer in service." Disconnected? He stared at the screen. That was impossible. He paid the bill. He was the account holder. Unless she had ported the number out. He dialed the house landline, standing in the hallway, listening to the phone ring downstairs. It rang and rang until the answering machine picked up. But it wasn't Leora's voice. It was the robotic factory setting. "Please leave a message." "Leora!" Ethan screamed into his mobile, realizing he was leaving a voicemail on a disconnected line. "Where are you? Pick up the damn phone." He hung up and paced the hallway. Think. Where would she go? Her parents were in Florida. Her sister Natalie lived in downtown Seattle. Natalie. He dialed Natalie's number. It rang 4 times. He was about to hang up when it clicked. "What do you want, Ethan?" Natalie's voice was ice. No greeting, no confusion. She knew. "Where is she, Nat?" Ethan demanded, trying to regain some authority. "I came home and the house is empty. Where is my wife? Where is my son?" "She's not your wife anymore, Ethan, or she won't be for long." "Don't give me that," Ethan snapped. "Put her on the phone. I don't know what kind of game she's playing, but taking Leo without my permission is kidnapping." "Kidnapping?" Natalie laughed, a harsh, dry sound. "You want to talk about legal definitions? Let's talk about adultery. Let's talk about dissipation of marital assets. Let's talk about the apartment on 4th Avenue. Ethan froze. The blood drained from his face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Save it," Natalie spat. "She knows everything, Ethan. She's known for months. You think because she's quiet, she's stupid? You think because she stays home, she doesn't see things?" "I want to speak to my son," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "Leo is safe. He's happy. And he's far away from your toxic bullshit." "Who is the hero?" Ethan blurted out, looking at the crayon drawing he had crumbled in his fist. The note. Leo wrote, "Mommy has a new hero." Who is he? Is she seeing someone? Is that what this is? She's projecting her guilt onto me. There was a pause on the other end of the line, a long, heavy silence. "You really are a narcissist, aren't you?" Natalie said quietly. "You think everything is about you. You think hero means another man. You're so small, Ethan. Tell me where they are. You'll hear from her lawyer tomorrow morning. Don't call me again. If you show up at my apartment, I have a restraining order ready to be filed." Click. Ethan lowered the phone. He stood in the dark hallway of his empty house, the silence rushing back in to fill the space where his family used to be. He walked back downstairs, his legs feeling like lead. He went to the kitchen and smoothed out the crumpled yellow paper on the island. Mommy has a new hero. He stared at the jagged figure in blue and red. He looked closer. The figure wasn't holding a sword or a gun. It was holding a briefcase. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. He ran to his home office, a small room off the living room where he kept his personal safe. He scrambled behind the oak desk and pulled the painting of the sailboat away from the wall to reveal the keypad. He punched in the code, 0412. Leo's birthday. The light flashed red. Error. He tried again, 0412. Red. He tried Leora's birthday. Red. He tried the generic factory code. Red. She had changed the combination. No. Ethan grabbed a heavy brass letter opener from the desk and smashed it against the steel door of the safe, screaming in frustration. Inside that safe was $50,000 in emergency cash, his passport, and the deed to the house. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. He was locked out of his safe. His wife and child were gone, and his sister-in-law knew about the apartment on 4th Avenue. But the worst part wasn't the fear. It was the confusion. Leora was Leora. She was vanilla ice cream. She was PBS documentaries. She was early bedtimes. How had she orchestrated a disappearance this total, this clean, without him noticing a single ripple? He looked at the empty bookshelves where her collection of mystery novels used to be. Mystery novels. She read them voraciously. She watched true crime documentaries while folding laundry. He had always teased her about it, calling it her murder porn. He realized then, with a sick feeling in his gut, that while he was busy building a secret life with Jessica, Leora hadn't been crying into her pillow. She had been studying. And the new hero? Ethan stood up, staggering slightly. He walked back to the kitchen and poured himself a whiskey, ignoring the glass and drinking straight from the bottle. He needed to find them. He was Ethan Caldwell. He fixed problems. He built skyscrapers. He could fix this. He grabbed his car keys. He would drive to Natalie's. Restraining order be damned. He would tear Seattle apart if he had to. But as he turned to leave, the doorbell rang. Ding-dong. It was a cheerful, normal sound that felt like a gunshot in the tense atmosphere. Ethan froze. 11:45 p.m. He moved to the door, looking through the peephole. Standing on the porch wasn't Natalie. It wasn't Leora. It was a man in a dark trench coat, holding a large manila envelope. And behind him, parked at the curb, was a police cruiser with its lights off. Ethan opened the door. "Ethan Caldwell?" the man asked. His face was grim, battered by the weather and years of bad coffee. "Yes?" "You've been served," the man said, thrusting the envelope into Ethan's chest. "Served? Divorce papers?" Ethan grabbed the envelope. "At midnight." "Not just divorce papers, Mr. Caldwell," the man said, turning to walk away. "That's a court order for the immediate vacating of the premises, and I'd advise you to step outside. The officers are here to escort you while you retrieve your essential items." "What? This is my house?" "Actually," the man paused on the step, looking back over his shoulder. "According to the filing, the deed was transferred into a trust for Leo Caldwell 3 days ago. You signed the papers yourself." "I never signed anything." "The forensic accountant attached to the filing says otherwise. Something about a power of attorney you signed while incapacitated during a surgery last year." Ethan's mind flashed back. The appendectomy. Leora had brought him papers to sign while he was groggy on morphine. She said it was for insurance. The man smiled, a thin, humorless expression. "Your wife has a very good lawyer, Mr. Caldwell. A real hero." Ethan watched as 2 uniformed officers stepped out of the cruiser and walked up the driveway. The new hero wasn't a lover. It wasn't a doctor. The figure in the drawing holding the briefcase. It was a shark, and Ethan was already bleeding in the water. The humiliation wasn't a wave. It was a slow, rising tide. Ethan stood in the foyer of the home he had purchased, renovated, and boasted about, watching a police officer named Officer Miller inspect the contents of his Toomey duffel bag. "Just essentials, Mr. Caldwell," Miller said, his voice flat. He held up a silver watch, a Patek Philippe. "Is this essential?" "It's my watch," Ethan snapped, his hand instinctively reaching out before retracting. "It's worth $40,000. You think I'm leaving it here?" The court order specifies clothing and toiletries needed for immediate sustenance. High-value assets are to remain in the home pending the inventory hearing, Miller recited, placing the watch back onto the entry table. It made a hollow clack that echoed in the empty house. Ethan felt a vain throb in his temple. This is insane. I pay the mortgage here. My name is on the deed. Was, the second officer corrected from the doorway. He was younger, with a buzz cut and a look of barely concealed disdain. It was on the deed. We saw the paperwork, sir. It's tight. You need to move it along. Ethan shoved 2 suits, a handful of underwear, and his toothbrush into the bag. He looked around the bedroom one last time. The space felt violated. Not by a burglar, but by the absence of the people who made it a home. The bed where he had slept for 7 years looked like a stranger's bed. He looked at the nightstand. The book he was reading, a biography of Churchill, was gone. Leora had taken it. Why? He walked down the stairs, the officers trailing him like shadows. As he stepped out the front door, the rain had picked up, slashing sideways in the wind. He looked across the street. The curtains in the Johnson house moved. He saw Mrs. Johnson's face, pale and inquisitive, peering out. She knew. In the suburbs, the police didn't show up at midnight unless someone was dead or someone was ruined. He threw his bag into the passenger seat of the Audi, the only thing that still felt like his, though the lease was probably under attack too. "Where will you be staying, sir?" Officer Miller asked, notebook out. "We need an address for the process server." Ethan hesitated. He realized with a jolt that he had nowhere to go. The hotels were an option, but that felt like an admission of defeat. And then there was Jessica. "I'll let my lawyer contact you," Ethan muttered. He slammed the car door, shielding himself from their gaze and the rain. He drove aimlessly for 20 minutes before turning toward downtown. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. He needed comfort. He needed validation. He needed Jessica to tell him that Leora was crazy, that this was a temporary blip, that they would laugh about this over mimosas in Aspen. He parked in the underground garage of Jessica's building. He didn't have a key card. He always buzzed up. So he had to wait for a resident to exit before slipping the car in. It felt tawdry, cheap. He took the elevator up, rehearsing his story. Crazy misunderstanding. Leora lost her mind. "I need to crash here for a night or two while I sort out the legal mess." He knocked on her door. It was 1:15 a.m. It took a long time for the door to open. When it did, Jessica was wearing a silk robe, her blonde hair messy, her eyes sharp with irritation. "Ethan?" She tightened the robe. "What are you doing? You left 3 hours ago." I had a situation," Ethan said, attempting a charming smile, but feeling the grimace on his face. He lifted the duffel bag. "Can I come in?" Jessica didn't step back. She blocked the doorway, her eyes flicking from his face to the bag. She was a curator of beautiful things, art, furniture, men. She had a sixth sense for when an object was damaged. "What kind of situation?" she asked, her voice cool. "Leora." Ethan exhaled, leaning against the doorframe. "She found out, or she knew. I don't know. She changed the locks, served me with papers. It's a mess." Jessica's expression didn't soften into sympathy. It hardened into calculation. "She kicked you out?" "Technically, yes. For now. It's just legal posturing. I'll have it fixed by Monday." He stepped forward. "Jess, it's freezing. Let me in." She hesitated, then stepped aside, but the air in the apartment felt different than it had earlier that evening. The romance was gone. The illicit thrill was gone. Now it was just a married man with a bag of laundry standing in her minimalist living room. "You can't stay here, Ethan," she said, crossing her arms. Ethan stopped halfway to the kitchen. What? I said you can't stay here. My landlord is strict about guests, and honestly, I didn't sign up for this. Sign up for what? Ethan's voice rose. Real life? You've been begging me to leave her for months. You said, if only you were free. Well, I'm free, Jess. I'm here. I wanted you to leave her, Jessica said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. I didn't want you to be thrown out. There's a difference, Ethan. One is a choice. The other is a failure. It's temporary, Ethan shouted. I have assets. I have the firm. Do you? Jessica walked over to the window, looking out at the city. If she served you tonight, that means she's been planning this. Wives like Leora, they don't strike until they have the kill shot. If she locked you out of the house, she's probably locked you out of the accounts too. Ethan felt a cold pit in his stomach. She was saying the quiet part out loud. I just need a place to sleep, he pleaded, the arrogance draining out of him, leaving him looking like a frightened child. Just tonight. Please. Jessica looked at him. For a second, he saw a flicker of pity. It was worse than hatred. One night, she said. The couch. But you have to be gone before I leave for yoga at 7 a.m. I can't have doormen seeing you looking like this. Ethan nodded, defeated. He walked to the beige Italian leather sofa, a piece of furniture designed for aesthetics, not comfort, and sat down. Jessica went back to her bedroom and locked the door. The click of the lock was louder than the thunder outside. Ethan lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. He thought of his king-sized bed in Bellevue. He thought of Leo sleeping in his race car bed. Mommy has a new hero. The image of the crayon drawing burned in his mind. Who was he? The man in the trench coat had said, lawyer. But who? Who was good enough to orchestrate a coup like this in total silence? Ethan drifted into a fitful sleep, haunted by dreams of being underwater, watching a boat sail away with Leora and Leo on the deck, waving goodbye. Morning came with the grace of a sledgehammer. The sun glared off Jessica's floor-to-ceiling windows, heating the living room like a greenhouse. Ethan woke up with a stiff neck and a mouth that tasted like old whiskey. He checked his phone. 6:45 a.m. He heard the shower running in the master bathroom. He knew he had to leave. He couldn't bear the look on Jessica's face in the harsh light of day, the look of a woman realizing she had bet on a losing horse. He used the guest bathroom to splash water on his face, brushed his teeth with his finger, and put on the same suit he had worn yesterday. It was wrinkled at the waist and smelled faintly of rain. He slipped out of the apartment without saying goodbye. The Jessica phone in his pocket felt like a brick. He left it on her kitchen counter. He didn't need a secret phone anymore. He had no secrets left to keep. Ethan got into his car and drove to the nearest Starbucks. He needed coffee. He needed to think. He ordered a venti black coffee and a breakfast sandwich. That'll be $12.50, the barista said, bored. Ethan tapped his sleek black American Express Platinum card. Beep. Declined, the machine chirped. Ethan frowned. Try it again. Chip might be dirty. He inserted the card. Beep. Declined. Heat rushed to his cheeks. The line behind him was growing. Here, try this one. He pulled out his Chase Sapphire Reserve. Beep. Declined. Sir, do you have cash? The barista asked, her eyes darting to the people waiting behind him. No, I don't. Ethan grabbed his wallet. He had $50 in there yesterday. It was empty. He remembered leaving his wallet on the dresser while he showered at Jessica's the previous evening. Had she? No. She wouldn't. Or maybe he had spent it and forgotten. I have to go, Ethan muttered. He walked out of the coffee shop, empty-handed, his face burning. He sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. She had frozen everything. Joint accounts, credit cards, even his personal lines of credit. It was a scorched earth policy. He pulled out his phone and dialed the one person he hoped could help. Brad Mitchell. Brad was a frat brother, a mediocre golfer, and a decent divorce attorney. "Ethan?" Brad answered on the second ring. "I was expecting this call. Word travels fast." "Word? It's been 8 hours, Brad." "The docket updates at 6 a.m., Ethan. People watch the filings, especially when it involves Caldwell architecture." "I need you to represent me, Brad. She locked me out. She froze the money. I can't even buy a damn coffee." "Ethan, listen to me carefully." Brad's voice was uncharacteristically serious. "I pulled the filing this morning. I can't represent you." "What? Why? We're friends." "Because of who is representing Leora." "Who is it?" Ethan demanded. "Who is this hero?" "She hired Garrison Steele." The name hung in the air like toxic gas. Ethan knew the name. Everyone in Seattle with a net worth over $5 million knew the name. Garrison Steele wasn't just a lawyer. He was a demolition expert. He didn't settle, he destroyed. He was the man you hired when you didn't want a divorce. You wanted an exorcism. He cost $1,000 an hour, and he reportedly didn't take a case unless he knew he could bankrupt the opposition. "Steele?" Ethan whispered. "How?" "Leora doesn't know people like that. Leora shops at Target." "She knows him now," Brad said. "And Ethan, the filing, it's bad. They have a forensic accounting of your spending for the last 18 months. The apartment rental on 4th Avenue, the dinners at Canlis, the trips to Aspen listed as client development. It's all there. They're filing for a temporary restraining order based on financial dissipation and emotional instability." "That's lies." "Is it?" Brad challenged. "Did you rent the apartment?" Ethan was silent. "Look, I can give you a referral," Brad said, his tone softening slightly. "There's a guy, Saul Goodman types, but he's scrappy. But Ethan, you need to brace yourself. Steele doesn't lose. If Leora has him, she's not looking to negotiate custody. She's looking for sole legal and physical. She's going to argue you're unfit." "Unfit? I'm a great father." "You missed Leo's birthday party last year for a conference that they have proof was a weekend in Napa with a J. Miller. It's in the exhibits, Ethan." Ethan hung up. He felt like he was going to vomit. They had everything. The level of surveillance required to get that data. Leora had been watching him for a year. While he was lying in bed next to her, lying to her face, she had been documenting it. He started the car. He had to go to work. The firm was his sanctuary. It was the one place Leora couldn't touch. He was the principal architect. He brought in the revenue. He drove to the Caldwell and Partners building in South Lake Union. He took the elevator to the top floor, trying to project an air of confidence despite his wrinkled suit. He walked past the receptionist, Brenda. "Good morning, Mr. Caldwell," she said, but she didn't smile. She looked down at her desk immediately. Ethan walked to his corner office. He reached for the handle, locked. He frowned and swiped his keycard. The light blinked red. "Access denied." "What the hell is going on?" he shouted, rattling the handle. The bullpen went silent. 20 junior architects and designers looked up from their screens. The door to the conference room opened. Robert Sterling, his senior partner and mentor, stepped out. He looked tired. "Ethan," Robert said quietly. "In my office. Now." Ethan followed Robert into the glass-walled office. Robert didn't sit down. He stood by the window, looking out at the Space Needle. "Why is my office locked, Robert? Why is my card deactivated?" "We received a preservation letter from Garrison Steele's office this morning," Robert said, turning to face him, "along with a subpoena for all financial records regarding your expense accounts." "So?" It's a divorce. It's personal. It stopped being personal when you used the company Amex to pay for flights for your mistress, Ethan, Robert said, his voice trembling with suppressed anger. We did a preliminary audit this morning after the letter came. You charged $14,000 in flights and hotels to the Tacoma Project code. There is no Tacoma Project. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came. He had thought he would pay it back before the quarter ended. He always meant to move the money around. That's embezzlement, Ethan, Robert said. We have a fiduciary duty to the board. We can't have you in the building. You're firing me? Ethan gasped. I built this firm. You're on unpaid administrative leave, pending a full investigation, Robert corrected. But if the audit holds up, yes, you're done. And we will likely have to sue you to recover the funds to avoid liability ourselves. Ethan sank into one of the guest chairs. His world was collapsing in real time. House gone, money gone, family gone, career gone. Go home, Ethan, Robert said gently. Get a lawyer. I don't have a home, Ethan whispered. He walked out of the office. The walk to the elevator felt like a funeral procession. The staff watched him, the golden boy, the genius architect, escorted out by security like a shoplifter. He got back to his car and sat there. His phone buzzed, a notification from Instagram. He stared at it. It was a post from a private account he followed, Leora's sister, Natalie. Usually she blocked him, but she must have unblocked him just for this. It was a photo, a picture of Leora and Leo. They were on a beach, the sky a brilliant, impossible blue. Leo was holding a surfboard, grinning ear to ear. Leora looked different. Her hair was cut short, a stylish bob. She was wearing a sundress he had never seen. She looked younger, lighter. Standing next to them, with a hand on Leo's shoulder, was a man. He was tall, with silver hair and a kind, rugged face. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing a linen shirt and shorts. The caption read, "First day of the rest of our lives. Finally safe. Finally happy. New beginnings." The real hero. Ethan zoomed in on the man. It wasn't Garrison Steele. It was someone else. He felt a flare of jealousy so hot it burned his throat. Who was he? Then he looked at the location tag. It didn't say Florida. It didn't say Hawaii. It said Rarotonga, Cook Islands. They weren't just gone. They were outside the jurisdiction of the United States. And if Garrison Steele was the shark in the water here, this man was the sanctuary on the other side of the world. Ethan realized then that the Crayon note wasn't a taunt. It was a statement of fact. He wasn't the villain in their story anymore. He was a footnote. And the demolition had only just begun. Ethan sat in his Audi in the parking garage of Jessica's building for an hour before he gathered the courage to go back up. It was 2:00 p.m. He had nowhere else to go. His bank cards were plastic rectangles of uselessness. His office access was gone. His reputation was currently being dissected on industry Slack channels across the Pacific Northwest. He rehearsed a lie. He would tell Jessica that the bank accounts were frozen due to a clerical error during the divorce filing. He would say the firm was giving him a sabbatical to deal with the family tragedy. He would spin it. He was Ethan Caldwell. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. He buzzed the apartment. No answer. He waited 5 minutes and buzzed again. Finally, the intercom crackled. "What?" Jessica's voice was sharp, tinny through the speaker. "It's me. I forgot my key. Well, I don't have a key. Buzz me in, Jess." "Go away, Ethan." "Jess, come on. I need to get my bag. I need to charge my phone." There was a long pause. Then the buzzer sounded. A long, angry drone. Ethan rode the elevator up, his stomach churning. When he reached the door, it was already open. His Toomey duffel bag was sitting in the hallway. Jessica was standing in the doorway, but she wasn't alone. Standing behind her, looking uncomfortable but resolute, was the building's doorman, a burly man named Henry, whom Ethan had tipped generously at Christmas. "What is this?" Ethan asked, gesturing to the bag. "I saw the news, Ethan," Jessica said. She held up her phone. On the screen was a headline from a local business blog: "Caldwell Architecture Principal, suspended amidst embezzlement allegations." "It's a misunderstanding," Ethan said quickly, stepping forward. "Internal politics. Robert is trying to push me out because I asked for a bigger equity share. I'm going to sue them for defamation." Jessica laughed. It was a cruel, hollow sound. "You think I'm stupid? I have friends at the firm, Ethan. Brenda from reception. She's in my spin class. She told me everything. You've been expensing my flights to the company. You put my spa weekends on the corporate card." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. I was going to pay it back." "You involved me in a crime," Jessica hissed, stepping closer, her eyes blazing. "Do you know what that does to me? If the police start digging, my name is on those flight manifests. I could be an accessory." "You won't be. I'll protect you." "Protect me?" She looked him up and down with sneering disdain. "You can't even buy a sandwich. You're not a protector, Ethan. You're a liability." She kicked the duffel bag toward him. "Henry is here to make sure you leave without a scene. If you don't, he calls the police. And considering you're currently wanted for questioning regarding company funds, I don't think you want the cops here." Ethan looked at Henry. The doorman looked down, avoiding eye contact. "Sorry, Mr. Caldwell. Just doing my job." "Jess, please," Ethan's voice cracked. It was the first time in his life he had truly begged. "I have no cash. I have no gas in the car. Just lend me $500. I'll wire you $10,000 next week when this clears up." Jessica leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. She looked at his wrist. "The Patek," she said. "What?" "Give me the watch." Ethan covered the watch with his hand. This is a $40,000 watch. And you owe me for the risk you put me in. You owe me for the months I wasted thinking you were a catch." She held out her hand. "Give me the watch, and I'll give you $500 cash. Take it or leave it." Ethan stared at her. This woman, whose body he had worshipped, whose laugh he had chased like a drug, was now fencing his stolen goods in the hallway. He unclasped the watch. It felt like peeling off his own skin. He dropped it into her palm. Jessica examined it, nodded, and reached into her robe pocket. She pulled out a wad of bills, money she probably kept for tips and deliveries, and threw it at his chest. The bills fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. "Goodbye, Ethan. Don't come back." She slammed the door. The sound echoed down the hallway, final and absolute. Ethan knelt on the expensive carpet of the hallway, gathering the crumpled $20 bills. Henry the doorman watched him, pity mixed with embarrassment in his eyes. "Do you need help with the elevator, sir?" Henry asked softly. "No," Ethan whispered, clutching the cash, $460 total. "I can manage." He walked back to his car, threw the bag in the back, and sat in the driver's seat. He didn't turn the engine on. He just sat there, listening to the rain drum against the roof, crying until his throat was raw. The next morning, Ethan woke up in the back seat of his Audi, parked in a rest stop off I-90. His neck was locked in a spasm of pain. The windows were fogged up from his breath. He used a bottle of water to brush his teeth and splashed his face in the rest stop bathroom, ignoring the looks from a trucker washing grease off his hands. He had an appointment at 10 a.m., not with a client, but with his executioner. He had used the last of his battery life the night before to call Garrison Steele's office. Surprisingly, Steele had agreed to see him immediately. Ethan drove into the city, the skyline he had helped shape now looking like a fortress built to keep him out. He parked in a public lot, paying with the cash Jessica had given him, and walked to the shimmering glass tower where Garrison Steele held court. The office was on the 40th floor. It didn't look like a law firm. It looked like an art gallery. Minimalist, silent, smelling of white tea and intimidation. "Mr. Caldwell," the receptionist said without asking for his name, "Mr. Steele is expecting you in the boardroom." She led him down a long corridor lined with black and white photos of shipwrecks. Subtle, Ethan thought bitterly. She opened the heavy mahogany doors. The boardroom was massive, dominated by a table long enough to land a plane on. At the far end sat a man. Garrison Steele was smaller than Ethan expected. He was balding, wearing wire-rimmed glasses and a cardigan over his button-down shirt. He looked like a kindly grandfather or a university librarian. But on the table in front of him was a stack of files, 3 feet high. "Sit down, Mr. Caldwell," Steele said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. Ethan walked the length of the room and sat at the opposite end. "I'm here to stop this madness, Steele. Leora can't just kidnap my son and run to the South Pacific." Steele smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were dead shark eyes. "It's not kidnapping when you have sole legal custody, Ethan." "She doesn't have custody. We haven't even had a hearing." "We had an emergency ex parte hearing yesterday afternoon," Steele said, opening a file. "Judge Patterson granted it immediately, given the evidence." "What evidence? That I work too much?" Steele slid a thick, bound document across the polished table. It slid effortlessly, stopping exactly at the edge in front of Ethan. "This," Steele said, "is what we call the grey ledger." Ethan opened it. It was a spreadsheet, hundreds of pages long. Date, time, location, amount, companion, August 12th, 8:15 p.m., Canlis 450 Jessica Miller, September 4th, 11 a.m., Nordstrom 2300 handbag, Jessica Miller, October 10th, Hotel 1000, room 404, overnight stay. There were photos too, grainy, long lens photos. Ethan kissing Jessica in the park. Ethan arguing with Jessica in the car. Ethan entering the apartment building. "Leora hired a private investigator 11 months ago," Steele explained calmly. "She didn't want to blow up the marriage on a hunch. She wanted to be sure. And once she was sure, well, Leora is a methodical woman. She decided to let you dig the hole deep enough so you could never climb out." Ethan stared at the photos. "She knew? For a year. And she still made me breakfast. She still slept in the same bed." "She was protecting her son," Steele said. "She was waiting for the asset transfer to finalize. The trust for Leo. You signed that 6 months ago, thinking it was a tax shelter. It wasn't. It was an irrevocable transfer of the primary residence and 60% of your liquid savings into a trust controlled by an independent guardian." "This is entrapment," Ethan stammered. "This is chess, Mr. Caldwell. You were playing checkers. Badly." Steele leaned forward, interlacing his fingers. "But that's the civil side. That's just money. Let's talk about the criminal side." Ethan swallowed hard. "The firm." "Yes. We provided the audit results to the district attorney this morning as a gesture of goodwill in the divorce proceedings, to show Leora had no knowledge of your embezzlement. They are drafting a warrant for your arrest as we speak." Ethan gripped the edge of the table. You ratted me out? I protected my client from being an accessory to fraud. Leora is blameless. You, however, 18 counts of wire fraud. Estimated prison time, 3 to 5 years. Ethan felt the room spinning. Prison. He was going to prison. "But," Steele said, his voice dropping an octave, "I have a proposal, A one-time offer. What? Ethan rasped. You signed the divorce papers today. You sign a full confession regarding the embezzlement, stating Leora knew nothing. You waive all rights to custody of Leo. You agree to a lifetime restraining order. And if I do? If you do, I will hand over a secondary file to the DA, a file containing evidence that you were under extreme duress and mental health strain during the embezzlement. We have a psychiatrist willing to testify to a manic episode. It will likely reduce your sentence to probation and restitution. No prison. And I never see Leo again. You can write him letters, Steele said. Whether Leora reads them to him is up to her. Ethan looked at the papers. It was a surrender. A total, unconditional surrender. Tell me about the hero, Ethan whispered, looking up. The guy in the photo, in the Cook Islands. Steele paused. He took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly. That's Daniel, Steele said. Who is he? Some beach bum she picked up? No, Steele said. Daniel is the man Leora was engaged to 15 years ago, before she met you. Ethan blinked. What? She left him for you, Steele continued. Because you were ambitious. You were exciting. You were the architect. Daniel was just a high school science teacher. You told her he was small. You told her she deserved the world. So she chose you. Steele put his glasses back on. She reached out to him 6 months ago, just as a friend. She apologized. She told him she made a mistake. She told him she chose the glitter instead of the gold. Steele slid a single photo across the table. It was the original of the Instagram post. Leora, Leo, and Daniel on the beach. But in high resolution, Ethan could see something he missed on the phone screen. Leo was holding Daniel's hand, and Leo looked safe. He looked like he wasn't waiting for his dad to cancel plans. He looked like he was with a father. Daniel isn't a rich man, Steele said. He sold his house in Oregon to help Leora fund the move. He's teaching at a local school in Rarotonga now. He's the hero, Ethan. Not because he's strong or rich or powerful, but because he showed up. Steele opened a fountain pen and placed it on the document. Sign the papers, Ethan. Save yourself from prison. Let them go. You've already lost them. Have the dignity to stop chasing. Ethan picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so hard, the nib scratched the paper. He looked at the signature line. Respondent, Ethan Caldwell. He thought of Leo. Mommy has a new hero. Ethan realized the crayon note wasn't an insult to him. It was a desperate plea from his son for a father who was actually present. He signed his name. The scratch of the pen sounded like a stone sealing a tomb. Done, Ethan whispered. Steele pulled the papers back instantly. Wise choice. What now? Ethan asked, his voice dead. Now? Steele stood up, gathering the files. Now you leave. The police are on their way to the lobby to process your surrender on the fraud charges. I'd suggest you go down and meet them. It looks better for the judge. Ethan stood up. He walked to the door. Mr. Caldwell, Steele called out. Ethan turned. Leora wanted me to give you this. Steele held out a small envelope. Ethan took it. He walked out of the office, down the hall of shipwrecks, and into the elevator. As the elevator plummeted toward the lobby, toward the police, toward the end of his life as he knew it, Ethan opened the envelope. Inside was a single playing card, the King of Hearts, but the face of the king had been scribbled out with red crayon, and on the back, in Leora's elegant handwriting, you built a house, Ethan, but you never built a home. Daniel is teaching Leo how to build a fire. Turns out that's what keeps you warm. The elevator doors opened. 2 police officers were waiting. Ethan Caldwell stepped forward, the scribbled king crumpled in his hand, and held out his wrists. 18 months later, the rain in Seattle was still the same, grey, relentless, and cold. But Ethan Caldwell no longer watched it from the 24th floor of a luxury apartment or the driver's seat of an Audi QR7. He watched it through the sliding glass doors of Build Mart, a discount hardware warehouse in the industrial district. He adjusted his orange vest, the polyester scratching at his neck. His name tag read Ethan in generic block letters, with no title, no principal architect, no accolades. Just a name. "Hey, buddy," a customer snapped, waving a receipt. "I asked for eggshell finish, not satin. This looks like garbage. Fix it." Ethan looked at the man, a guy in a suit, talking on a Bluetooth headset, checking his watch. He looked exactly like Ethan used to look. "I'm sorry, sir," Ethan said, his voice rusty. "I'll remix it for you right away." He took the can of paint to the mixer. The vibration of the machine rattled his teeth. He had avoided prison time thanks to the plea deal Steele orchestrated, but the restitution payments took 60% of his minimum wage paycheck. He lived in a basement studio apartment that smelled of mildew. He took the bus. He ate ramen. He was the architect of his own ruin, living in the rubble. At 5:00 p.m., he punched out. He went to his locker to grab his coat. Inside, sitting on top of his boots, was a thick envelope with the return address of Garrison Steele and Associates. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. It was the annual update, the one mercy Leora had granted him. Once a year, a status report on Leo. He didn't open it on the bus. He waited until he was in his small room, sitting on the edge of his sagging mattress under the light of a single bulb. He tore the envelope open. There was no letter from Leora, no words of forgiveness or anger, just a single photocopy of a school project. It was a worksheet titled, "My Family Tree, Grade 2. Ethan's hands shook as he traced the lines drawn in marker. At the top, pasted carefully, was a photo of Leora, smiling and tan. Next to her was a photo of Daniel, the man from the beach, looking rugged and kind. Under Daniel's photo, in Leo's wobbly handwriting, was the word Dad. Ethan's eyes frantically scanned the page, looking for his own name. He looked for a branch labeled Biological Father, or Ethan. He found it at the very bottom of the page, off to the side, disconnected from the main tree. It was a small box drawn in grey crayon. Inside the box, Leo had written, "The Man Who Left." There was no photo, just the grey square. Ethan dropped the paper. It fluttered to the floor, landing face up. He realized then that Leora's revenge hadn't been about taking his money or his job. Those were just things. Her revenge was about erasing his legacy. She hadn't just replaced him, she had overwritten him. To the world, he was a felon. To his ex-wife, he was a memory. But to his son, he wasn't a hero, and he wasn't even a villain. He was just a blank, grey space. Ethan turned off the light and lay back in the dark, listening to the rain, the only constant companion he had left. He had built skyscrapers that scraped the clouds, but he had failed to lay the only foundation that mattered. And now he was finally, truly, homeless. And that is the tragic collapse of Ethan Caldwell. He thought he was playing a game he could win, believing his money and status made him untouchable. But he forgot that a home isn't built with bricks and mortar. It's built with trust. When he broke that trust, he didn't just lose his wife. He handed the blueprints of his life to a woman who knew exactly how to demolish it. The crayon note wasn't just a warning, it was a prophecy. Mommy Has a New Hero wasn't about finding a richer man or a stronger man. It was about finding a real man, one who stays. Ethan learned too late that while you can buy a house, you have to earn a family. So what do you think? Did Leora go too far with her revenge, or did Ethan get exactly what he deserved? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have forgiven him, or would you have hired Garrison Steele? If you enjoyed this story of karma and betrayal, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and remember, be careful what you sacrifice for a temporary thrill, because some things, once broken, can never be rebuilt. See you in the next video.